In the previous video, we actually implemented the song class as well as the album class for our challenge. Now time to continue on, and what we're going to do now is we're going to just test that the album class is actually working correctly. So to do that, we're going to go to our main class and to our main method. So what we're going to do now is create some albums. We're going to add some songs to the albums, and then ultimately we're going to actually create a linked list and add those albums to the linked list. So let's make a start. So I'm going to type album equals new album. String, the name of the album is going to be Stormbringer, and Stormbringer, probably showing my age here, and the band name is Deep Purple. Okay, the album.add song, and the parameters you can see that with our song is the title duration, so we're going to actually add the song. So we're going to do first one, Stormbringer 4.6, and add some extra songs there and add the times. Soldier of Fortune. Albums, and we also need up here a private variable called our field, I should say, called our albums, which is going to be an array list of our album objects. So private array list, and it's going to be of album, and we'll call it albums equals new array list of album objects, like so. So up here, or down here I should say, we can type albums.add, and we're going to actually add each album. So I'm going to add two albums. So I'm going to do this one first, add album, and that should have been static because we're actually just static method. Okay, so we'll actually create a second one, album equals new album for those about to rock, one of my favorite bands. And that's Aussie band there, AC/DC. Let's add some songs. Album.add song. Those about to rock. Oops, semicolon there. And let's just add a couple more. Okay, that should be enough. And we'll just quickly fix these. 3.25. Of course, you can put whatever songs you want to put in place of this. Okay, last one. And I just sped that up just to make it a bit easier, so you didn't have to see me typing all of that. But you can actually use whatever songs you want, obviously, in your challenge, but that's the ones that I've come up with. All right, so we've got that, and of course, we then need to also add that to the album as well, to the album's array list. So it's albums.add album again, like so. And just a note there, you might be wondering, well, how come we're adding album twice? Well, we actually created a new object at this point. So by creating a brand new object, that's going to be completely different to the previous album object that we created above. So we've now got an array list with two albums in it by two different artists. So what we'll do now, we can add some songs to the playlist. And if you recall, the playlist is going to be a linked list, and of course the albums are stored in an array list. So the linked list is going to be linked list song playlist equals new linked list and of song, like so. So to actually add something, we can type albums. First way of doing it, albums.get 0, which is the first album we actually added in the array list. So that would be the Deep Purple album. Dot add to playlist. And we're going to use the second one first, the title. And we're going to put the name in. And this is where you need to get the name exactly the same or it won't work. So and we'll try you. Can't do it. Whoops. You can't do it right. And of course, we pass our playlist to it. And so if this name here, that name there doesn't correspond exactly to the actual name that's actually in the album, in this case, this one here, then it's actually going to get an error. It's going to get an error and it's not going to find it because it has to actually match. So it has to, firstly, it has to match, but secondly, it has to be a song that was added to that album. So in other words, if you put Let's Go here and you're trying to reference element 0, which is the album for Deep Purple, you'll actually get an error. So that's the first one. Let's just add a couple more. So we'll just do a copy and paste here. 2 more. So the next one we can do is Holy Man. Typing correct there. And the next one, let's create one or type in one that doesn't exist, the one that's not in that first album. So if I type in, say, Speaking, it does not exist, just to remember or to remind us that that's the case. So that shouldn't work. So that's one way of doing it. So the second way would be to type albums. Remember, we overloaded the add to playlist method. So we can type albums.get 0. So again, it's the Deep Purple album dot add to playlist. This time we'll use the track number. So track number 9, which should be Soldier of Fortune. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 should be the last one there. That's track 9. So if we just type now 9, because that was the second overloaded method, and I'll just do that again so you can see it. I'm using this one here, which is the first one. So track 9, and it'll still be linked, a playlist I should say, that's actually sent to it. So that's just another way of doing it. So doing the same now to add some songs from another album. Let's add a couple more. We'll add another 4, but we'll actually use the other albums. So album 1, which was the AC/DC album. So let's go back there now. And for that, well, first one we'll do is song 8, which does exist. Song 3, which does exist. Song 2, which does exist. And song 6. Actually, what we'll do for the last one, let's do something, just a high number we know doesn't exist. So that obviously doesn't exist. There's not 24 tracks in the AC/DC album, in either of them actually, so that should fail. So there is no track 24, like so. So at this point, we can actually now try actually playing this. Play, playlist, like so. But of course, we haven't actually written the playlist method yet, so we need to actually quickly write that. So what I'm going to do is just write a really quick version of that, and then we'll actually enhance it in the next video. So I'm just going to make a bit more space here. And okay, so first one's going to be private, static, void play, and the parameter we're going to be passing is a linked list of song objects, which of course is our playlist. So we're going to start off with something basic, list iterator, which will be song, list iterator, because that's the type of object, equals playlist.listIterator. And we'll put if list iterator dot size, actually not list iterator, sorry, playlist dot size. If that's equal to 0, we're going to return a message. No songs in playlist. Return. Else, what we're going to do is we're going to start and put a message for the first one. We'll put now playing list iterator dot next dot toString. Now this is the important part here, the toString. Because if you remember in the example for linked lists that before the challenge, we were actually dealing with strings, so it was easy using .next because we knew that it was actually a type of string, so it automatically worked in the system.out. But in this case, using .next, of course, we're using a song object. So what we've implemented is this toString method, and I talked about that in the previous video, toString. And if you go back and actually have a look at the actual song object, remember that the toString, its function is just to print out for a particular object the title, the colon, the space, and then the duration. So that's why we've implemented toString. And what I'll do when I run it, I'll show you what this output looks like without toString and with toString as well. Okay, so going back to the playlist, what we'll do for now is we'll just literally just play the first one. We're just going to play that first song just to confirm it actually is working, and we haven't actually got an error message. So we'll do that. We'll actually go back to main and we'll actually just run that. And we are getting some messages that the song Speaking is not in the album, which is correct because remember that up here there is song doesn't exist. We actually purposely typed in a song that didn't exist in the album, and I'll just put that on the screen so you can see it. So that's good. This album does not have a track 24. Remember, we used a number that we knew there wouldn't be a track for the second album. Now playing You Can't Do It Right, and that was the first entry that we actually added. So that's actually working correctly, which is great. And notice that this is the actual toString message there. the name of the song, a colon, and then the actual duration. So that's working as well. That's using the song object. And just to show you what happens, if I actually comment that out, like so. Actually, I'll get rid of that override as well to avoid that message. And if we go back to main again and rerun this, you'll actually see that the code will still work, but we now get playing com.timbercharker.song at 3cd1 blah blah blah, and that number will probably vary if you're running it on your computer. And that's because if we go back to our code again for song, we overrode a function. If you recall, toString was actually part of the object that is a class that is extended by all other objects you create in Java. So this is the default implementation of the toString method. That's what Java does. It gives you the name of the package, the name of the class, and a number which is meant to represent the memory location of where that is, where that particular object is in memory. But what we've done, of course, is we've overwritten that functionality so that it's actually printing out something useful. So that's what toString is used for. And again, we can just run that again and see what that looks like. And we actually get the proper representation showing. So what we need to do now is actually continue on and actually extend this play method, because obviously it's only showing the first song, but we would like to have a mechanism to add here so that we can actually type in and go forward in our playlist, go back in our playlist, and actually have access to the other songs that actually are part of that playlist. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's actually extend out this play function, play method, so it's actually got that. So we need to add a scanner, because we're going to need that for input. Scanner equals new scanner, system.in, of course. And we want a couple other variables, quit, which we saw in the previous video, quit equals false. And we want to maintain or find out which direction we're going in, maintain the actual variable to tell us which direction we're navigating, forward or back, for reasons explained in the previous video. So I'm going to set that forward initially to true, because normally when you start a playlist, you have to go forward because you're at the first element. You can't physically go backwards. And I'll just accept that import to Java util.scanner. Okay, we've got a song iterator. So what we want to do now is down here is to add some more code while not quit, because of course with a playlist you can continue until you actually exit out. And we're going to put int action equals scanner dot next int. And then we're going to do scanner dot next line again to clear. Now the actions we actually want in this, we're going to start with something pretty simple. We're actually going to start off with obviously the ability to exit out of the loop. Then we're going to add some other cases and continually add those as we go through. So I'm going to start with switch on action. Case 0 will be our quit. So we're just going to type system out playlist complete. And quit equals true. And break. Then we also want a case 1 break, case 2 break, case 3 break, case 4. What we're going to do there is we're going to print the list, playlist, and break, and I'll explain that shortly. And case 5, we're going to print the menu. And we're also going to add a break after that. And I'll put that on the next line. It doesn't really matter, that would still work. It's still valid, but it looks a bit nicer being consistent there. Likewise for this one. So that's our basic menu at this point. So the actual options we're going to be adding. So we've got the first one, which is the being able to actually exit. The next option, option 1, is going to be a forward. So we're actually going to go forward. So we're going to do that. If not forward, you remember this code from the previous video. If list iterator dot has next, list iterator dot forward, sorry, dot next, I should say, not dot forward, and then forward equals true. So we're checking to see if we're not going forward, we need to actually change direction and set it to going forward so that the next line actually works. And of course the next line is if list iterator dot has next, then we're actually going to go to now playing plus list iterator dot next dot toString. Else we've reached the end of the list, end of the playlist, and we set forward to false because we cannot literally go forward anymore. So that's the first one. And what we'll do quickly before we end this video, we'll do the second case, which is going backwards, going back in a previous direction, or going to the previous entries if there are any in the playlist. So of course the code we need to do there is we say if we're currently going forward, if list iterator dot has previous, then we need to try change that direction so it's got goes to the previous entry, previous. Again, this was all explained in detail in the previous video, so I won't do it again now. Then we set forward to false, and then we just add our test. If list iterator dot has previous, we can go back. In other words, we're going to put now playing list iterator dot previous dot toString. And of course the else will be if we've reached the start, we are at the start of the playlist. And of course we need to set forward to true at that point. So now that we've done that, let's actually run this code, and I'll comment these out briefly and we'll do those in the next video so that it'll actually compile. So we'll run this just to make sure that forward and previous, next and previous in other words, going forward to the list or going backwards actually works. Now what I haven't done at this stage is I haven't actually got it showing the menu, so it's not showing any options. So we can actually type these. We know that 0 will exit, so we'll test that works. 0 actually exits, that's good. So if we run this again, and this time if we type 1, it should go to the next one. And we'll just go up here and have a look. The next one was Holy Man, so that's correct. Then the next one, now playing Soldier of Fortune. And Soldier of Fortune, we can check that that's actually working by looking at that third entry. Speed King was invalid, so of course that hasn't been added, which is correct. And track 9 was Soldier of Fortune from this album, and that you can see that that's working. So we'll do another one. Now playing Breaking the Rules. And Breaking the Rules was track 8 for this one. You can see that's Breaking the Rules, which is track 8, which is correct. And just quickly going backwards, we should be able to go back to Soldier of Fortune, go back to Holy Man, and go back one more time to You Can't Do It Right. Now playing You Can't Do It Right. And press 2 again, we should get an error. We're at the start of the list, so we can't do any more. So that's good. So we've got a lot of our code working. So I'm going to stop the video here. In the next video, we'll continue on, and hopefully we'll get close to being able to finish this code. I think we're just about done. So we'll do that in the next video.